undercover work, it's not something that is just kind of, you snap your fingers and it happens.
Mm-hmm.
An undercover agent who goes deep undercover and is able to truly infiltrate a community of criminals, is their success is due in part to their own skill, but so much of things that they can't control. Your ethnicity, your background, the skills you brought to the job, all of these things are kind of almost by luck or happenstance.
Yeah.
And it's also timing. When Joe Pistone went undercover as a mobster, you're at the height of the mafia. Similarly, when Martin became an FBI agent, he was the perfect age, his early 30s, and it was the late 1980s, the height of the war on drugs. He was one of the only dudes who was a native Spanish speaker from Puerto Rico, had street smarts, could chart a ship, fly a plane, talk the talk, walk the walk, and had balls of steel. So it was like perfect place, perfect time. If Martin was who he was, but he joined in 2003, he probably wouldn't have had that opportunity, because they wanted people who could integrate more so into Arabic speaking circles, Muslim communities. It's all about what's going on way at the top too. So for Martin, it was just a perfect storm of factors that gave him this opportunity. And I wanted to make that clear as well in the book. So coming into the book, it was a little bit of everything. And also too, how can we make sure that when someone's reading it, they want to turn the page? Classic storytelling stuff. I don't want to get too caught up in the details. I want to just make sure that on a fundamental level, this is a kick-ass story that people are going to enjoy.
I want to make sure this book is setting up here, because this is such a, when you talk about the nostalgia of the era, it, like, you accomplish that just with the book cover here. It's hot pink. It's not, it screams 90s. You think Miami Vice, like.
So when we were doing the cover, right, like there's so much, like, you think of like a cheesy ass like law enforcement book cover, and I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. Yeah. I said, we want pink, we want yellow. I was like, I want this book cover to scream. That was how I said to the publisher. That's exactly what I said. I was like, this thing's got to scream. This has to be a 15-footer, which means that when you walk in the bookstore, you see it from 15 feet away. And I mean, I was thrilled at what we came out with, because like, this is exactly what I wanted.
I want like the t-shirt of this. Like, I don't know if you're considering doing merch for the book launch, but like, I will wear this t-shirt.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
This is so cool.
And this is Martin in the middle.
Yeah.
This was a surveillance image. I do have the original, which is a black and white photo. Martin was able to obtain a couple images from the case file, of which there were probably thousands, but he had a couple good ones. This one was probably the best. And these two dudes are traffickers for the Medellin cartel. This shorter guy over here was kind of like a lead smuggler, and this was his kind of muscle man, his Sicario. So this guy would help with logistics, but if anyone ever needed to get whacked, this guy would do the dirty work. But Martin in this picture is negotiating a cocaine shipment with them. I think that's from 89, maybe.
Wow. So early on into his time undercover.
In Miami, yeah. Because the first chunk of time was working in Miami as a smuggler, and that's how he was really first integrated into the cartel, was as someone who could source a ship and get your drugs from Colombia to Miami undetected.
It's almost like getting hired at any other company. Is like the company has to have a gap. You have to be able to fill that gap. Like you have a particular set of skills, to quote my man Liam Neeson. And it's not like you just go in and submit your application at a cartel and say, hey, I'd like to work for you. It's like you have to come from a background and bring something to the table that's useful to them.
Well, and that's, and that was really why Martin was able to integrate so quickly and so thoroughly. But one of the main reasons why he was able to get started was that they had a source. The FBI, the Miami field office, had convinced a pilot for the Medellin cartel to become what they call a cooperating witness or a source. Basically, this person works kind of undercover in their own capacity as a criminal, where you're working with the feds. And in Martin's case, this guy's main job was to introduce Martin to his cartel brethren and say, oh, this is my old buddy Manny. I haven't seen him in so long, but, you know, he's back on the water and he's super talented and he has a warehouse in Miami and he has all the operational things that we need. We should work with him. And that was really how Martin got started. He wasn't like walking down the street and being like, yo, you cartel, you know, this stuff was like really well set up from the highest levels. And that's how Martin was even asked to see if he wanted to even do undercover, because they had isolated this source. So when they had the source, they're like, how can we maximize the benefit of this person? This person's not some street level dealer, because back then the FBI, you know, under Louis Freeh and in like the Reagan era, they kind of realized that drugs weren't their problem. It wasn't the actual drugs. It was the people. It was the operational structures that the cartels had mastered that allowed them to get the drugs into the United States. Once the drugs hit the streets, like, it wasn't the FBI's problem per se. They were really focused on the people. I mean, once the drugs hit communities, it was local police, it was state police, it was even DEA doing a lot of like stateside distribution networks, tracking that sort of thing. The FBI wanted to get the guys who were operating on both sides of the Caribbean. They're going to Colombia, they're coming to Miami, or they're going back and forth. They're the ones communicating with the deputies in the cartel. They're the ones coordinating the stateside distributors. If they could break that chain, then they would have, you know, you get so much more bang for your buck in terms of, you know, operational return. And that's why they asked Martin, because he was the only guy in Miami at the time who could kind of fit the bill. So when Martin said, sure, I'll go undercover, he had just joined the FBI a few months prior, working on a drug squad in Miami, tracking people and doing similar things. But when he went undercover, he was able to go up the chain pretty quick. And they basically said, all right, you're going to meet with this guy, Diego, and he's going to show you the ropes. And he gave him all the tips. And he said, you know, when you go to a restaurant with these guys, you know, and they're over ordering and they're ordering liquor, you know, and you want to foot the bill, like, don't check the bill. Like, don't look at the bill. Drug lords don't look at the bill. They don't ask the manager about, well, what's this? You know, like, and never wear resold shoes. You know, like if a drug lord sees you and you don't have brand new shoes on, they know you're a cop. Like, these guys aren't stupid, you know, and this source kind of taught Martin all the little things that would keep your cover intact.
So this is interesting, because one of the things that I was thinking about is like, yes, he grew up in Puerto Rico. Yes, he was a Spanish speaker, all these things. But again, I think about, he was also a naval officer, you know, a United States naval officer, like that. They have a certain way about them. They're very polished people, you know, naval officers, much more than I'd say even other branches. There's a certain aura to them. And to think that a guy that was that could then go fit in with cartel, like drug gang life and be believed to the point that he's, you know, did it as long as he did and got as high as he did. It's kind of insane to think about. I mean, those are two very different personalities.
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because I kind of feel like he used the professionalism taught to him by the Navy as a tool to convince the higher end cartel dudes that he was like legit, like he had his shit together. And again, it's kind of like when you think about drug cartels, you think of these sort of like unwieldy, kind of trigger happy, you know, almost street guys, right? But like when you get up, especially in the Colombian cartels, they're really quite polished and well educated. And if you can come across as with an element of restraint and professionalism, and you have your rules, and you don't break from best practices, it's like all the things he was taught in the Navy and the FBI actually kind of helped him in that way, while sprinkling in a little bit of that, you know, street fairy dust that he collected along the way too.